Yashodanandana Prachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prachachana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Vanachari Jaya Rama Rava Kunja Bihari Kapi Jannavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Prachachana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Vanachari Jaya Rama Rava Kunja Bihari Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Radhe. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 22, Verse 25. Yada kadachit jivatma Yada kadachit jivatma samsara nichakarmabhi samsara nichakarmabhi nanano nishvanishoyang paurushim gatim avrajet yada kadachit jivatma sangsara nichada karmabhi nanayo nishvanishoyang paurushim gatim avrajet.
Yada kadachi jivatma samsara nija karmani nanaya nishta anish kuyam parishim gatim avraje
Yada kadachit jivatma saranichakarmabhi danano nishvanishoyam paurushim gatim avrajet. Yada, when, kadachit, sometimes, jiva atma, the living entity, samsaran, rotating in the cycle of birth and death, nichakarmabhi, because of his own fruitive activities, Danayonishu, in different species of life, Anishaha, not independent, completely under the control of material nature. I am this living entity, Paurushim Gatim, the situation of being human, Avrajet, wants to obtain. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. While rotating in the cycle of birth and death again and again in different species, because of his own fruitive activities, the dependent living entity, by good fortune, may happen to become a human being. This human birth is very rarely obtained. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is fully independent. Thus, it is not always a fact that a living being's loss of all opulence is a sign of the Supreme Lord's mercy upon him, The Lord can act any way he likes. He may take away one's opulence, or he may not. There are varieties of forms of life, and the Lord treats them according to the circumstances as he chooses. Generally, it is to be understood that the human form of life is one of great responsibility. Purusha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti gunan karanam guna sangosya sat asat yoni janmasu. The living entity in the material nature follows the way of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. Thus, is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. Bhagavad Gita 13:22. After thus rotating through many forms of life and the cycle of birth and death, the living being gets a chance for a human form. Therefore, every human being, especially one belonging to a civilized nature or culture, must be extremely responsible in his activities. He should not risk degradation in the next life, because the body will change. Tata dehantara praptir. We should be extremely careful to see to the proper use of life. To see to the proper use of life is the purpose of Krishna consciousness. The foolish living entity declares freedom from all control, but factually he is not free. He is fully under the control of material nature. He must therefore be most careful as responsibility in activities of his life. Yada kadachit jivatma sangsharam nichakarmavi nanayonishvanishoyam paurushim gatim avajet. While rotating in the circle of birth and death again and again in different species, because of his own fruitive activities, the dependent living entity, by good fortune, may happen to become a human being. This human birth is very rarely obtained. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastavutale Shumada Bhakti Bhushan Swami Tanana Papara Samandaya Zavatra Gaur Kipara Satyarishwa Shakti Krishna Mahagashri Gurave Namaste. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Jnanatimirandasya Jananjaya Shalakaya Chakshurmilitanena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarupascha Kripasindhava cha Patitanam Pavanepyo Vaishnavepyo Namo Namaha. So who is speaking here? Who is saying this? By rotating in this circle of birth and death again and again in different species, because of his own fruitive activities, the dependent living entity, by good fortune, may happen to become a human being. Thus, this human birth is very rarely obtained. Who can say this? Nobody knows. Huh? No, this is the saying of the Supreme Controller. This is Krishna himself. He is the man. He is the actor, the Purusha of everything. This is his arrangement. And here this here this said in the oh it falls down, huh? So then it's okay. In this Bhagavad Gita verse, it is said almost the same, that the living entity is enjoying the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Sat asat joni janmasu, and that means that it is sat and asat. It is in every circumstance in the material nature. If it is acting still in the material nature, it is birth by birth covered in a joni janmasu, and the yoni is an, you can also say like like a bubble. The yoni, how to say in English, placenta. No? Yeah, one has to go in the womb of a mother to get a body. That is almost in every living entities. That is, you see it by some birds. The eggs is also a bubble, and die Fruchtblase is also a bubble. You have to go in a bubble. You has to be covered, and the small bubble is the yoni in the body of a female living entity, and the big bubble is the universe. We are always in a bubble, covered. We are not in our original form. But to come in this bubble is a chance to become freed from this material desires, because it is not comfortable to be in a bubble. It's not a comfortable situation to be in a bubble, to grow, and then it becomes narrow and narrow and narrow, and then you have to go to a very small port to come out of this bubble, and then you are in a situation that you can start to breathe. That's almost very painful. One can see, if one is discovering how a birth, human birth happens, or how other birth happens, it is always painful. And then the first shock is always a collapse, or you fall down from a cow back, or even higher as an antelope back or an elephant back. You fall down on the embryo is falling on the floor, like so, and then it gets a shock, and then it gets awakened and starts to breathe, or sometimes even difficulties. That's not a nice situation. And it is very rarely to attain by all these living entities, 8,400,000 species of life. There are only 400,000 human species. Not every of these human species is on this planet Earth. But it's very rarely that you get the opportunity to come into human birth, so that you can start with responsible activities. That is also mentioned here. In the purport, Prabhupada says, that the human form of life is one of a great responsibility. So because the most of the people, they don't know what to do and how and what is the result of their actions. especially today, we have an insight by this all-pervading medias that you can see how the living entities act and how foolish they act and how unresponsibility they act and so on. Then they don't know what they get for it. Yesterday, by providence, I wrote an article. There was a man in a holiday place, and he was going in an hotel, opened a door, and was lying in the bed. But he had not checked in this hotel. And then the owner of the room came and discovered and said, and want to wake up this man. What is this? Is my room. I rent this room. And then this man, he becomes very, very upset. And not even the policeman, which come later on, could pacify him. So that's happened today all over. That people are so convinced of their mood of ignorance that almost nobody can stop them. Only the force of the government are able to control it. There was another incident not far from here that in a train that a man came to control the tickets for the train passengers, and one of the train passengers had no ticket. And then the man said, then I have to have your name, because it is not allowed to use a train in this country without a ticket. And then the man who get controlled becomes so upset, he was biting the controller, and the controller died. So what? No? That is the situation in the material world. The apocalyptic behavior is growing more and more that nobody wants to get controlled by others. But lastly, everybody is controlled by the situation to be here, and by the Supreme Personality, by the providence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada said, you have to pay obeisances, and if you want it, then you have to pay obeisances in the time of death. There's a nice story from Vrajendra Maharaj. He left recently his body in Vrindavan, and he was telling a story when he first met the devotees, when he first met Prabhupada. So he was a little bit proud because he was raised up in San Diego in the Orange County, and living in this southwest America, a very rich environment, and he was intelligent, he was not poverty stricken, so he was studying and so on. He was a little bit proud. And then Prabhupada gave a class, was interested in, he read already the Bhagavad Gita, and he came in, and then he didn't pay obeisances. So because he was new, if one is new in a temple, not everybody is recognizing that it is recommended as a part of Vedic etiquette that one is paying obeisances, because we know that that everywhere the Supreme Personality of the Godhead is present, especially in everybody's heart, and especially if a spiritual master is giving a lecture. And on every temple there is also the deity form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he didn't pay obeisances. He was sitting in the class, and Prabhupada was speaking, and then in the middle of the class, Prabhupada, all of a sudden, he started to say, you have to pay your obeisances. And if you don't want to do it, then at least you have to pay your obeisances in the time of death. And that he was recognizing this. He said, oh yes, this must be, this is a very interested person. And he was accepting more and more. By this speech of Prabhupada, he could accept Srila Prabhupada as his spiritual master in his heart. Because Srila Prabhupada is Trikalakya, he knows everything, and then he's seeing every situation, and is able to see in everybody's heart. So Krishna is saying here, this to the situation of Bali Maharaj. No? Bali Maharaj was, in one sense, he was a demon. In the other sense, he was favorite of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he was offering everything to the Lord. He was also offering things to the Lord which doesn't belong to him, his own body, but he was not so recognized at all. But in the last moment, he was very ashamed because his grandfather, Prahlad Maharaj, was also present. And therefore the Lord here instructed him and made a final conclusion, because the Lord is the responsible person for everything, especially for everything in the material world. Why and how the things happen, because this material world is meant to make progress in spiritual life. I saw an article in the medias that was about the universe. The universe, especially the planet Earth, was in a rotation situations, and then there was writing about it and said how the scientists discovered that maybe this planet is meant for involving life. So, and then I was writing a commentary and said, yes, maybe one will ask the Creator. But this is what the scientists refused. They don't accept the Creator. They think that what they say is all coming of their mental concoction, of their mental investigation by sense perception. But we know that sense perception and mental concoction is not absolute, that it creates failure in many different aspects. So we are intelligent enough that we accept this Srimad Bhagavatam, and then everything is written, everything what is important about creation, about eternity, about the situation of the living entity in the material world is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, and you can explain Srimad Bhagavatam with Srimad Bhagavatam, because everything, Srimad Bhagavatam is an information from many different angels, angels. So therefore, very often I was reciting a verse from another part of Srimad Bhagavatam, which says almost the same. This is from the 10th canto. And Krishna is also speaking here. Januvai loka etasmin avidya kama karmabi uchavacha sugatishu navidasvam gatim brahman. Krishna, this is not only a saying by Krishna, but here it is said, it is written that it is the thought of Krishna. And Krishna is thinking here, certainly people in this world are wandering among higher and lower destinations, which they achieve through activities performed according to their desires and without full knowledge. Thus people do not know their real destination. That is almost the same as here in the Bhagavad Gita. The living entity in material nature follows the way of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to its association with that material nature. Thus, the He meets with good and evil amongst various species. So, but the living entities doesn't know what it is doing. They're always perceiving what is going on. They're describing what they see, what they feel, but they are not able to analyze their situation. You cannot find it in material science that somebody is analyzing the situation, because they cannot. They have no tools for it. If you neglect the existence of the soul, as the nowadays science is doing, how you can inquire about sat, about being? It's not possible. Nothing from importance happens in the material world. It's always the same and the same and the same. Everything was already there. But somebody is coming to an idea, and then he is proclaiming, "Oh, that's new. I am the supporter. I am the creator of this idea." But that's also false. Platon says the ideas are coming to me. So because that is always false proclaiming. Everything in the material world, what they proclaim is a lie, more or less. Nobody, and nothing belongs to anybody. Nobody has created something, because whatever you create, you need something from the environment of the material nature, and this doesn't belong to you. You can make a sign on a paper and say, "Oh, I bought this." Yeah, but what is the value? Who is? Then you always if you are honest, you have to question who is the real owner. Everybody knows I'm not. If you're a little bit honest in your heart, I'm not the owner. I have not created this. I'm the Verwalter. Wie sagt man in Maintainer? Ne, was? Verwalter in English? The caretaker, yes. We are only caretakers, not more. That is honesty. That is and we are, by the Bhagavatam, we become trained to become caretaker. Caretaker of our own spiritual life and caretaker of other spiritual life. To come to consciousness, that's so important. But one has to have a little bit intelligence, or one has to be fortunate to come in contact with such a movement, with such a profound knowledge. So it is happened by providence. Krishna says everything happens by providence. But somehow there is a plan behind it. It is Krishna's plan. Krishna's plan to raise up consciousness so that the living entity, especially in the human form, in other forms it is not possible. Only the humans can ask questions. Every other living entity is only recognizing what happened, but they cannot ask questions. It's not in their ability. So nowadays, most of the people are not able to think about such deep matters, such kind of spiritual matters. The living entity is not possible. It is not in their ability anymore, because the ability is decreasing by the time. But by this, Krishna came in a certain form as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as in a special form of mercy, That because he knows that the living entity is not capable anymore to do this, what Krishna himself is recommending in the Vedas, Savadhamma Parityaja. Because we cannot anymore. We are not determined enough. Our mind is already so much polluted by sense gratification, by medias, by association with unintelligent fellows and so on. So we are not determined anymore. Determined. And therefore Krishna came in this special form as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is the sum and substance of Krishna in all his aspects as how to say, Mitgefühl für die Lebewesen. Yes, because here in these verses you can see that there is a compassion. He is the creator, and he is describing the situation of the living entities in the material world. And that means he is compassionate. Even in this verse, Krishna is compassionate. He says what they are doing, why they are wandering always. And they're wandering because they don't know my abode. And therefore, sometimes Krishna is revealing. If the living entity is asking about his abode, then he is revealing it. So he did it here in this chapter to the cowherd man, because they were inquiring, maybe this son of Nanda Maharaj, this little boy, maybe he is a demigod, or maybe he is more than a demigod, maybe he is even the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then that is what Krishna wants, that we are inquiring, that we are asking questions. And only by this our life situations can change. And then Krishna reveals his eternal abode to the cowherd man and showed them, this will be your next destination. And nowadays, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did this job. Krishna came himself in a combined form to teach devotional service. Because only by this devotional service, by devotional activity, one can obtain the highest form, the highest perfections. It is said often in Vedic injunctions, Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, or it is said, Brahman, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti Shabhyate. That is a verse from the beginning of the first canto. Tattva Tat Jnanam Atvayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate. That the highest truth is perceived in 3 different steps. Brahman, in the Vedanta Sutra it is said, Attatu Brahmachikyasa. So now you have to inquire about the truth, about the Brahman. But the Brahman, and we often say Aham Brahmasmi, that's also a saying in the Vedic, Aham Brahmasmi. But that means only I am eternal, I am, that means existence, I'm in existence, nothing more. But if you come to the next step of Paramatma realization, that means you have already obtained some knowledge. On the Brahman stage, you are only existing. Brahman is existing. Everything is lasting in Brahman, on the effulgence of the Lord. But it's only existing. There is no consciousness. Consciousness is raised by by Paramatma. So if you accept there's an other person, so then consciousness arises. That was in the first stage, Brahma. He was in the Brahman. He could perceive I'm existing on this lotus flower, but he had no answer. He had only questions. And then he was questioning, and then he heard a voice. And the voice, he could understand, there's an other person. And by this other person, he got an information from this other person. He could hear that somebody was speaking to him. And then he realized, then conscious, jnana, knowledge erased. He was asking, he was meditating, and by meditating it became knowledge. And this knowledge came from Paramatma. And then later on, when he was established in his practice by determination and by honesty, then he came to the knowledge of Bhagavan. Then the Lord appeared in his form before him, and he said, "I am satisfied with you, and with your service, with your meditation." And by this, he became the service. He came in bhakti, and everything what Brahma is doing is bhakti towards his Lord Govinda. Govindam Adipurusham, Tamaham Bhajami. He's always in the service of the Lord. And by this he is completely happy. Because he is doing what the Lord is expecting from him. And this is what Krishna wants from us when he says Sarvadharman Parityaja. But nowadays, it is even more easier that Krishna says, that Krishna came in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he is saying, just chant my holy name. Chant and be happy. So this is the easiest way of devotional service, of practice. And that is described in another chapter of the 10th canto, by the Brahmanas' wives. That's a very interesting chapter, because in the morning I was thinking about it, because nowadays there is a big discussion in ISKCON. Are women able to become spiritual masters? And it is almost, by a few leading devotees it is accepted, and by the most leading devotees it is denied. But it is stated in the Bhagavatam that women can be spiritual masters. And it is in this chapter, the Brahmana wives are blessed. That's very interesting. And in the beginning, these wives, they were bringing their offerings to the Lord against the will of her husbands. And but then they want to stay with the Lord, and the Lord says to them, "For you to remain in my bodily association would certainly not please people in this world, nor would it be the best way for you to increase your love for me. Rather, you should fix your minds on me, and very soon you will achieve me." So later on it is said that they attained the same perfection as the gopis, because they were not ready in the living circumstances to be always with the Lord like the gopis, because they were married women, Brahmanas' wives. But the Lord said, by this practice you will attain it. And then later, in the next verse, he is saying, it is by hearing about me, seeing my deity form, meditating upon me and chanting my names and glorious, that love for me develops, not by physical proximity. Therefore, please go back to your homes, Krishna says to them. And that is exactly this, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is instructing us. No? By hearing about me, hearing about Krishna, seeing Krishna in his deity form, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was visiting all the deities in India, almost all the deities in India. He was showing exactly this, what he said here. He came in this form to show us how to behave. Meditating about me and chanting my names and glorious. So in this way, love for me develops in you. So, and then later on, thus instructed the wives of the Brahmanas returned to the place of sacrifice. The Brahmanas did not find any fault in their wives. This is also a presence of a sign of the presence of the super soul in the heart of the husbands. You cannot imagine what it means that a wife, that the Brahmanas are making their sacrifice, the wives are making the offerings, and then they take the offerings and bring somebody else. And in the first stage, the Brahmanas were saying, what are these cowherd men? We are Brahmanas. Now, they have to serve us. Now, we cannot serve these little boys. It's impossible. That was the first meaning. But now, after it happens, there was no objection anymore, because they could understand by the heart, which Krishna was giving the Brahmanas knowledge from the heart. And they could tolerate it. The Brahmanas did not find any fault with their wives, and together with them, they finished the sacrifice. One of the ladies had been forcibly kept back by their husbands. When she heard the other describe the Supreme Lord Krishna, she embraced him within the heart and gave up her material body, the basis of bondage to material activity. That is the way to go short immediately to the Lord. Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, feed the cowherd boys with that food of 4 varieties. Then the all-powerful Lord himself partook of the preparations. Thus the Supreme Lord, appearing like a human being to perform his pastimes, imitated the ways of human society. He enjoyed pleasing his cows, cowherd boyfriends and cowherd girlfriends with his beauty, words and actions. The Brahmanas then came to their senses and began to feel great remorse. They thought, we have sinned, for we have denied the request of the 2 lords of the universe, who deceptively appeared as ordinary human beings. Taking notes of their wives' transcendental devotion for Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and seeing their own lack of devotion, the Brahmanas felt most sorrowful and began to condemn themselves. The Brahmanas said, to hell with our threefold birth, our vow of celibacy and our extensive learning, to hell with our aristocratic background and our expertise in the rituals of sacrifice. These are all condemned because we were inimical to the transcendental personality of Godhead. The illusory potency of the Supreme Lord certainly bewilders even the great mystics, what to speak of us. As Brahmanas, we are supposed to be the spiritual masters of all classes of men, yet we have been bewildered about our own real interest. Just see the unlimited love these women have developed for Lord Krishna, the spiritual master of the entire universe. This love has broken for them the very bounds of death, their attachment to family life. So Prabhupada says here then, superficially, the husbands, fathers, fathers-in-law, and so on were the ladies' gurus or teachers. Yet the woman had become perfect in Krishna consciousness, whereas the man had fallen into the darkness of ignorance. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, upon returning home, the ladies showed transcendental ecstatic symptoms, such as trembling of the body, shedding of tears, standing of the bodily hairs on end, discoloration of the complexion, crying out, "Oh pleasure of my life, O Krishna," with faltering words. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur goes on to state that while one may object that it is not fitting for a woman to love anyone other than her husband, here the husbands themselves point out that they are gurus only in imitation of the Supreme Lord, who is the Jagat Guru, the universal teacher and spiritual master. The husbands noted that the women, having perfected their transcendental attachment for Krishna, did not have even a trace of attachment left for home, husband, children, and so forth. Therefore, from that day on, the husbands accepted those ladies as their worshipable spiritual masters, and no longer thought of them as their wives or property. So this is clearly said by Prabhupada. If one has attained the perfection that one is loving the Lord, then one is a spiritual master. If one know the science of, that is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if one know the science of Krishna consciousness, then one is able to be a spiritual master. And this perfection which these wives attained came only by hearing on the marketplaces of Vrindavan about the activities of this small cowherd boy, the son of Nanda Maharaj. Only by hearing about his activities, this highly perfection were attained. So sometimes the women are very fortunate because they can accept what they hear, and they can imagine that it is, and can start by this hearing, they can start to meditate about this person, because Krishna was in Vrindavan, he was a real person. He was there. And they could understand, everybody knows these boys. They didn't know because in the beginning they only heard about him. They were not, these brahmanas and their wives, they were not in contact with Krishna. It is like it is in a society. They were a parallel group. And even in Vrindavan, when Krishna is present, there are also parallel groups. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, and there are Brahmana community, a Vaishya community, a Shudra community, and so on. So not everybody was in real contact of Krishna. Some only heard about him. But Krishna was the sum and subject of every discussion in Vrindavan. Everybody was speaking about him, but because what he did was astonishing. Nobody ever before could do such things as he did to kill all these demons. So this is our subjects of meditation, to be always with this pastimes of the Lord. Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I heard from Narayani, my spiritual master. So sometimes the one who knows, and the one who knows something about the Lord, he is in this situation a spiritual master. And she was telling me about an incident of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that Lord Chaitanya, she wrote it, she was wie sagt man, gelesen, sie hat es gelesen. She read it somewhere. So that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu likes always to hear from Gadadhar about the story of Dhruva Maharaj. And she said that Mahaprabhu, he heard it already 100 times, and he always was inquiring, please read it again, read it again. So even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by himself, he was not hearing lectures, he was hearing what the Bhagavatam says, exactly the words of the Bhagavatam. That was his greatest pleasure. Hare Krishna. So sorry that I was reading so much today, but this is the sum and substance. What can I say? What do I have realized about the Bhagavatam? I only remember, or I have already, when I wrote this verse of today, I said, oh, I know already, there's another verse who explaining almost the same. But what I have realized about this, I know there is, this subject matter is maybe written in this part, and it is written in this part of the Gita and this part of the Bhagavatam. So let me see what the different words are saying. What is the meaning? And then I meditate about it, and then I have a plan to speak about it. Sometimes I didn't have a plan. I'm not so intelligent. Then I have to pray to the Lord. Please help me. I don't know what I have to say today. Please help me. Please give me intelligence. So by this explanation, what I said about Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti Shapyati, in the example of Brahma, one can understand the point that only what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, that only by devotional service you can understand me. Not by meditating about the Brahman, and not by as many yogis are doing, by realizations of the Paramatma. That's subtle stages of realization. The realization of Krishna consciousness, that one really understands one's own situation in the material world, that one can become able to transcend this bodily feature, is only able by devotional service. So if one comes in action through the understanding that one is eternal, Brahman, and through Jnana, knowledge, which is given by other living entities under the guidance of the super soul, one comes to activity, performing devotional service. And by this one is able to come to Vijnana, to realization. And only by realization, by complete understanding in activity, one becomes Krishna conscious. Hare Krishna. Vielen Dank. Du hast eine Frage?
Thank you very much for this super excellent class. I have two questions, if possible.
Sprich ein bisschen lauter.
I have two questions, if possible. How it is possible? I mean, you and Naraini, you are very experienced in Krishna consciousness, and you are doing also a lot of service. You have your business and everything. How it is possible for you to fix during the day your mind on Krishna, and how could you come to this point that you can meditate more constantly about Krishna's pastimes? How can we learn this practically?
In this world, everything is a try. Try it. It's always a try. We are not perfect in the beginning, and we are almost maybe not perfect in the end. Everything depends on the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we are not the doer. We're always looking for consciousness. We're try, and everything is happened by try and error. Nobody is perfect. Try your best, and the best will happen.
Thank you.
Believe in yourself. Believe in your own efforts towards devotional service to the Lord. That's only what I can say about this.
Thank you very much. And you said in the beginning that we are always in a bubble, no? As in the womb of the mother, and we are in the bubble of this universe. That means for me, our material body has a connection with this. And I've heard a wonderful class with His Holiness Maharaj this week, and he said because we have a material body, we have to live in harmony with the material nature. Also he gives the example, for instance, if we eat too much, then with the time disease will follow, or we also sinful if we eat too much. What is maybe your practice? Because in Krishna consciousness sometimes it feels for me we concentrate a lot on the spiritual aspect of our life, and maybe not so much on living in harmony with material nature, also like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, not to eat too much, too little, not to sleep too much, too little. What is your, do you have a practical advice, also how we can, on the one side, concentrate on our spiritual activities and parallel to live, because we have this material body, to live in harmony with the laws of material nature?
Everything is try and error, the same answer as before. So I try, and then I'm maybe successful for quite some time. And then my false ego is coming, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm good, I'm doing well. And then I'm falling down again. And then, but I had an experience as I did before, and then I can raise my consciousness again to a certain behavior, to a certain level, and can continue. And we always in struggle, we always fall down, and we always try to raise again. So therefore the conclusion is to be humble. Humility, humbleness. Humbleness, that is in this word already. Humus. Yesterday I was reading about this. To be in a balance. That is, Maharaj is right. Human life means to be balanced. Balanced and responsible for your doings. But this requires intelligence. Only the humans have this ability to use it, but not everybody is doing. Some of the living entities are on the animal platform. They see only things, good things for their body. They don't think about mental health. There are also different categories of health. Bodily health, mental health, and spiritual health. And every state requires different activities. That's a challenge. That's a great challenge. So therefore, I know that I cannot never raise perfection by my own endeavor, by my own try. I trust on the mercy of Guru and Krishna. That's my only solution. But Krishna sees how great is your endeavor. And then he says, okay, come. You have understood the situation and the subject, the challenge of human life. Human life is a challenge. You can raise or you can fall. Or you can continue on earth. Matya Loka. Therefore he says that the living entity are wandering up and down, but they don't know about their destination. They're only perceiving what they see in their different situations. If they are on the hellish planets, they are screaming. On the heavenly planets, they are shouting out of joy. But nothing of them is the goal. Therefore, spiritual realization requires a deep requirement. No? You always have to require, my dear Lord, how I can please you, and you have to search for understanding and realization. It's dry and dry and dry. That's only what I can say. But you must have realizations, and otherwise you would not be here. So you had already experiences. So therefore you stay, and therefore you are searching further on. Shri Radha Madan Mohan ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Gopimanandi Hari Hari Bol. Bhakti Bhushan Maharaj ki jai.